My phone was buzzing off the hook on my passenger seat, lighting up every time a new panic message flooded in from executive leadership. Behind me at the corporate headquarters, $50 million in financial clearance transactions were trapped in complete digital gridlock, threatening to bankrupt client trust overnight. Instead of turning my car around, I smiled, adjusted my rearview mirror, and kept driving home to bake batch cookies with my daughter. For 7 long years, I gave my soul to Apex Sentinel Solutions as a lead infrastructure architect, keeping their fragile technical web from falling apart. I routinely pulled 70-hour work weeks, skipping family dinners, missing school plays, and taking emergency calls at 2 in the morning to fix broken code. My husband Vance and my kids, Noah and Chloe, practically forgot what my face looked like during daylight hours. I swallowed the exhaustion because I falsely believed management actually valued my sacrifices. Everything shattered during a private meeting with the regional vice president, Arthur Pendleton, who sat beneath a sprawling skyline view in his designer suit. He threw a stack of department metrics onto his mahogany desk and scolded me for making the quarterly budget look terrible with my endless logged overtime. Arthur explicitly commanded me to stop working extra hours immediately, demanding I strictly stick to a simple 40-hour weekly schedule without a single minute of overtime. I tried explaining that our bolted-together legacy infrastructure required constant monitoring to prevent massive financial crashes during off hours. Arthur brushed my warnings aside with a cold wave of his hand, snidely telling me to simply work smarter and prioritize better within my standard daily shift. As I stood up to leave his pristine office, he emphasized that no off-hours labor would ever be approved again, effective that very second. When I arrived home at a reasonable hour for once, my husband listened to the entire story while helping me clean up after dinner. Vance looked me dead in the eye and suggested something radical, telling me to give management exactly what they demanded by working strictly 40 hours and not a second more. That night, I made a silent vow to follow company orders to the letter, letting whatever broke after 5:30 fall on someone else. The first couple of weeks of strict compliance exposed massive cracks in our daily operations, as delayed system updates began stacking up fast. Minor glitches that I previously resolved in the middle of the night were left sitting unresolved until my official start time the following morning. Arthur noticed the growing delays and pulled me aside, condescendingly suggesting I needed to streamline my workflow, but I calmly reminded him I was following his mandatory standard schedule. By the 3rd week, the head of engineering, Preston Vance, cornered me near the break room to ask why our overnight database maintenance runs were failing constantly. I looked him in the eye and explained that Arthur forbade any work outside our basic contract hours, so I no longer touched systems off the clock. Preston just sighed in deep sympathy, admitting that Arthur always pulled this budget stunt with high performers until reality inevitably smacked him in the face. The breaking point arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon when Preston sent out a casual notice that he was pushing a major security patch at 6 in the evening. In the past, I would have gladly stayed late at my desk to monitor how our custom transaction bridges reacted to the update. But since my shift officially ended at 5:30, I packed my leather briefcase, bade my coworkers good night, and walked out the glass doors right on schedule. 20 minutes into my evening commute, my cell phone began ringing frantically with missed calls from Preston, various IT leads, and eventually Arthur himself. I ignored every single notification, pulled into my driveway, and walked into a warm, quiet house filled with the comforting smell of roasted garlic. My husband gave me a knowing smirk as I tossed my vibrating phone onto the nightstand, muted it completely, and walked downstairs to bake cookies. We spent the entire evening rolling out dough, helping Noah with his middle school science homework, and watching a family movie on the couch together. I was finally present for my family, enjoying a peaceful life that I had blindly sacrificed for years to protect a company that saw me as a line item. When I checked my device at 10 o'clock, I found 45 missed calls, 60 text alerts, and endless voicemail recordings from frantic managers. The system patch had completely locked up our central clearinghouse scripts, holding $50 million in financial transfers in endless limbo during a major clearance deadline. Arthur left a series of unhinged voicemails, progressing from professional demand to absolute hysteria as he begged me to log on and rescue the firm from total ruin. I closed the notifications, turned off my screen, drank a warm mug of chamomile tea, and slept peacefully for 8 uninterrupted hours. I arrived at my desk at 8:27 the next morning, greeting a chaotic floor filled with exhausted engineers who had been awake all night struggling. Before I could even open my inbox, a disheveled Arthur sprinted over to my cubicle with dark circles under his eyes and ordered me into his office. He slammed the door shut and screamed about how I had abandoned the firm during a $50 million catastrophe that nearly cost us our biggest clients. I remained completely calm, sat down, and reminded him that he explicitly prohibited me from working outside my official contract hours without prior written consent. When he claimed an emergency overrode standard policy, I pulled out a printed copy of the corporate handbook and highlighted the labor guidelines regarding unscheduled work. Arthur went pale as he realized I was using his own strict administrative rules to completely dismantle his authority while keeping my own job protected. Seeing his confidence evaporate, I laid out my conditions on his desk, presenting a formal infrastructure proposal I had drafted months earlier. I demanded a structured on-call compensation plan, a 15% base salary adjustment, and the immediate hiring of a junior specialist to absorb daily operational tasks. Arthur stared at the paper, realized the immense cost of losing me entirely, and reluctantly agreed to take my terms directly to executive leadership for rapid sign-off. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, Vice President of Operations Thomas Sterling called me into a high-level board conference alongside corporate human resources representatives. Thomas officially validated my operational proposal, approved my 15% raise retroactively, and authorized the budget to recruit a junior specialist under my direct supervision. He admitted the company had unfairly relied on my unpaid labor for far too long, promising that structural boundaries would be enforced across the entire division moving forward. Over the next few months, our whole workplace environment transformed as I mentored a brilliant young specialist named Grant Hayes to handle routine tasks. I consistently left the building at 5:30 every single day, spending quality evenings with Vance and the kids while maintaining a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. Arthur eventually resigned to take a lesser role elsewhere, unable to manage a team that now firmly stood up for their basic professional rights and boundaries. Looking back at that chaotic evening, letting that critical system crash was the most empowering decision I ever made in my entire professional life. I learned that you should never burn yourself out to preserve a system that treats your dedication as an invisible, free commodity. Sometimes, the only way to teach people your true value is to step back, follow their rules completely, and let the whole thing fall apart without you.